What's going on, guys? B Scott here with you, and on today's show, we got your wide receiver sit starts ahead of week 2 of the fantasy season. Hopefully you crushed week 1, but here's all the sit starts from every single matchup for your wide receivers heading into week 2 of the NFL season. So keep it locked and loaded right here at the first 4 downs. What's going on, guys, and welcome back. As I mentioned in the preview, we're going over your wide receiver sit starts ahead of week 2. So before we get to today's content, don't forget, like the video, subscribe, share, thumb bell, comment. If you got a comment on a receiver I didn't mention or hit on enough, you got a question to ask, drop in the comment section. I got no problem answering your questions. Flex spots, wide receiver twos, whatever you're battling with, just drop in the comment section. I'll be glad to give you my opinion. So once again, obviously, the timestamps will be in the description below. So if there's a matchup you're looking specifically for, go ahead and click on it. It's all there. So let's dive right into it. The first matchup we're going to be looking at, the New York Giants on the road against the Washington football team. Not very many pass catchers I love in this game, to be honest. Terry McLaurin, maybe he's your flex option. You can live with that. Last week, 4 receptions on 4 targets. Obviously a pretty safe game, but that was a Chargers secondary that was very tough. The Giants secondary, it's pretty good also. So I'm not necessarily loving Terry McLaurin this week. Taylor Heineke, I think he's more than manageable at the quarterback position. I think Terry McLaurin will be fine long term. I just think this is a tough spot for him this week. So he's on my almost sit list. If you got to play him, I understand. On the flip side, the New York Giants, who can you trust? You got Daniel Jones going against the Washington football defense that's very, very good. In a division matchup, maybe Daniel Jones just comes to play. Typically this happens in division matchups, but I'm not so sure. Kenny Golladay, can you trust him? He looked okay out there, but I don't know if he's going to see necessarily that full volume, as Daniel Jones might be running around like a chicken with his head cut off, to be honest, with that Washington football defensive front. So I don't really love Kenny Golladay this week. And then Sterling Shepard had a great game last week. I think it's a pure volume play. If you take a chance with him, I think once again, he can have an okay day here. Keenan Allen finished with 100 yards receiving, coming out of the slot just last week with the Los Angeles Chargers. So I think Sterling Shepard could have some work here, another volume day where you might be possibly starting him as a flex option. It's not a great spot, but it could be possible. All in all, I'm kind of trying to stray away from this game altogether. 40.5 point total over-under. There's not going to be a lot of points to be had here. I really don't think so. So if you got other options at wide receiver, I would be looking elsewhere. The New England Patriots on the road against the New York Jets. Pass catchers, Corey Davis. Obviously, the Jets, they're probably going to be struggling here against the New England Patriots defense that's very good. And Zach Wilson, he came on strong in the second half of that game last week, but I still don't know if I can trust him to put up these fantasy numbers for these wide receivers. Now, Corey Davis, obviously, with Jamison Crowder, if he's back this week, then you look at Elijah Moore in another week. Maybe you start Corey Davis here as kind of a dart throw, a possible guy that could do fairly well. He did catch 2 touchdowns last week, so don't jump on necessarily the recency bias. A lot of people do, but Corey Davis is kind of an option. The Patriots defense is good, but the secondary, you saw some holes a little bit here and there. They still played great. So Corey Davis, maybe it's an option for you. Hopefully you got better options. On the New England Patriots side, Nelson Aguilar had a great week. And I think the Jets secondary is so bad that I would have no problem starting Nelson Aguilar again this week. This is going to be one of my favorite flex plays of the week. Nelson Aguilar, 5 catches, had the touchdown, looked pretty good on the outside. Mac Jones looks great under center, even under pressure, very efficient, very accurate. So I like Nelson Aguilar. Jacoby Myers, I think, is a volume type play. You hope that more can, develop with Jacoby Myers because he is a great receiver. He can get open. And he's looked very good, but I just don't know if the touchdowns are going to be there. He's still looking for his first career touchdown. So I like Nelson Aguilar in the matchup. And then I have no problem if you want to start Jacoby Myers. I think really the Patriots are going to handle the Jets here in week 2. Now on to the Denver Broncos on the road against the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars, what pass catchers can you trust? Obviously, Trevor Lawrence looked great in garbage time and had plenty of fantasy relevant points, 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. DJ Chark only caught 3 of his 12 targets. Obviously, he's getting the 12 targets, so that's a good sign. This Denver Broncos defense is really good, and it's not the Houston Texans defense, so I'm worried that Jacksonville really struggles here, even at home. I don't know what receiver to start. DJ Chark, you see a lot of targets, and he's getting the downfield work. If you take a dart throw, I understand that you're going to go with DJ Chark. Marvin Jones Jr., he's also getting some target share. Laviska Shenault, arguably the most talented receiver on this roster, but you're seeing it. He's a check down guy that you're seeing is just not seeing the volume downfield and where it matters. So I'd like Laviska Shenault as a player. I just haven't seen yet that I can put him in my lineup comfortably on a weekly basis. So Jacksonville Jaguars, I don't know if I feel comfortable starting any of these wide receivers, even though some of them will probably be valuable. Don't get me wrong. The Denver side of the ball, They lose Jerry Jeudy. I think that bodes well for Noah Fant for the most part, in my opinion. And then I like KJ Hamler out of the slot. You saw Jacksonville last week. Just get eaten up downfield. Brandon Cooks on the long plays. So, and Pharaoh Brown even at the tight end position. So for Denver, Noah Fant's definitely a guy. Cortland Sutton, I'm torn whether I feel comfortable starting him. Last week, 1 catch for 14 yards. That's what he finished with on 3 targets. Tim Patrick, KJ Hamler. I really think KJ Hamler is going to pick up a little more of those the short and intermediate reception work. Tim Patrick, they like him in the red zone. Hopefully Cortland Sutton just comes out and balls out. That's what you hope. But I don't know if I can necessarily take it this week. I know they're playing Jacksonville. It's a juicy matchup. I don't know which pass catchers to trust. I like KJ Hamler. If you're going to start Cortland Sutton, I understand because of the great matchup. And then Tim Patrick. All 3 of these guys should be okay here in a game in which I think Denver should easily beat the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now we got the Buffalo Bills on the road against Miami Dolphins. Stephon Diggs, you're going to be starting them no matter what. Cole Beasley, Emmanuel Sanders, Gabriel Davis. All these guys are flex-type guys, dart throw type guys. I think Cole Beasley, you're going to see the volume you saw last week, over 10 targets once again. So the volume will be there for Cole Beasley on a weekly basis. The touchdowns, it's going to be hit or miss, and you'll be lucky to catch them, depending. Emmanuel Sanders did okay, and Gabriel Davis was the one that caught the touchdown. So all 3 of these guys, I think, could be flex-type options, but obviously they're a little bit deeper in deeper leagues. If you're stacked at wide receivers, these guys aren't options at all. Stephon Diggs, you're going to start. On the Miami side of the ball, Buffalo, gave up a touchdown to Deontay Johnson. Played pretty well on defense. Looked outstanding, to be honest. That defensive game last week, it was pretty crazy. Buffalo really struggled on offense. Miami, they have a great defense, so I'm looking forward to seeing this matchup. It's going to be exciting. Last year, these 2 teams both boomed against each other. A lot of fantasy points. So Will Fuller's back. Devontae Parker, Jalen Waddle. Which one are you going to take your dart throws at? Tre'Davious White, great, outstanding cornerback. We'll see who he defends. I'm guessing it'll probably be Will Fuller on the outside. I like Jalen Waddle, to be honest. I don't know if this is a good spot to be starting any of these wide receivers. Tua, I don't know still if we can trust him on a weekly basis to put up these big fantasy numbers. Jalen Waddle is the favorite in that wide receiver core that I like so far, just based on the game 1. He caught the touchdown, looked great, made some plays. We haven't seen what Will Fuller can bring. So obviously, all 3 of these guys are wide receiver 3 flex type guys that you have to take chances on. I'm not sure how this game's going to play out. I like the Buffalo Bills to win the game, but I don't know if there's going to be a ton of points just based on what the Buffalo Bills look like against Pittsburgh Steelers defense last week. So these pass catchers are risky on the Miami Dolphins side. You're going to start Diggs, and there's a lot of flex type options if you got to take chances with these wide receivers. Now we're on the San Francisco 49ers on the road against Philadelphia Eagles. A couple pass catchers that I feel comfortable with. Deebo Samuel is a must start. Brandon Ayuk, just a disappearing act. Goose egg. Didn't run a lot of routes. The coach came out and said he fell behind Sherfield in the starting position. So I don't know. That's kind of tough to see. Brandon Ayuk was a great talent. Looked great last season. But right now I know Deebo is the one wide receiver that you can trust on the San Francisco 49ers as long as he's healthy. So I like Deebo Samuel here to be starting. Could be a tough matchup with Darius Slay, but I still think Deebo's an option that you should probably be starting based on how outstanding he looked in week 1. Flip side of the ball, Devontae Smith. This is the one wide receiver I do like in this offense this week. Jalen Reagor did catch a touchdown. Looked great, but I think Devontae Smith, you're going to see pull away and get that bigger target share than any other player in this offense. That's the one guy I feel comfortable in a game in which the Niners, their defense looked good, didn't look great, really let the Detroit Lions come back on them. Pretty crazy, to be honest. But Devontae Smith, that's the one wide receiver I feel comfortable starting, possibly a wide receiver 3 or a flex. Los Angeles Rams on the road against the Indianapolis Colts. On the Rams side of the ball, you're starting Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp. These are 2 wide receivers that are almost set and forget in any matchup. You're going to be firing these guys up, hopefully as wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 type options. On the Colts side of the ball, there's not a receiver I can trust. Last week, put my foot in my mouth with Michael Pittman. It didn't work out, obviously. I thought he had a great spot to do great against Seattle defense. The secondary that there were some question marks with. And guess what? It didn't work out. So Indianapolis Colts pass catchers, I'm not sure who to take. Zach Pascal maybe, but honestly, the secondary of the Rams is no joke. You saw what they did to Allen Robinson last week. I'm out on the Colts receivers altogether this week. Now on to the Las Vegas Raiders on the road against Pittsburgh Steelers. I just can't seem to get behind a Las Vegas Raider wide receiver yet. Bryan Edwards looked great in overtime and 5 minutes left in the game. Before that, he didn't have a target. So I can't trust anything outside of Darren Waller for the Las Vegas Raiders, period. 19 targets last week, on pace for 5,000. So, I can't trust any pass catchers in the Las Vegas Raiders wide receiver court this week, especially against Pittsburgh secondary. That's pretty darn good. So for the Pittsburgh side of the ball, you're starting Deontay Johnson. Caught a touchdown last week. Did get banged up a little bit in the game, but came back in. Saved his day with the touchdown. Chase Claypool, Juju Smith-Schuster. These are both flex type guys. I think Claypool's huge talent. Absolute talent, but I don't know if he's going to see enough volume. You hope for the big play. That's what you really hope from Claypool. So Claypool, Juju Smith-Schuster are going to be flexing these guys at best this week in a matchup that, don't get me wrong, the Raiders defense looked great. It looked improved. The secondary looked pretty good and held up decently, but I was against Lamar Jackson. Ben Roethlisberger, he's behind a bad offensive line. The Raiders front of the defense, Max Crosby, looks great. Could be a low-scoring game. And the pass catchers, I'm not starting anything for the Raiders. Chase Claypool, Juju Smith-Schuster, those are flex-type options. Deontay Johnson, obvious start. Cincinnati Bengals on the road against the Chicago Bears. Wide receivers are starting. Jamar Chase. Looked great. Caught a big touchdown last week. Looks like he's fitting right in. Plain and simple. You're going to be starting him and T. Higgins in this matchup. Chicago Bears. Their secondary did not look good. Gave up a lot of passing yards to Matthew Stafford with ease. Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods. Gave up the bomb to Van Jefferson. So I like Jamar Chase and I like T. Higgins, obviously, in this matchup. Tyler Boyd, I have some question marks. We'll see what his his target share it ends up going forward. Didn't have a lot this last week against the Minnesota team. Honestly, Joe Burrow dropped back only 27 times, which is a shock considering on average he dropped over 40 times last year through the first 5 weeks. So, or through the first 10 weeks, I'm sorry. So obviously, I like Jamar Chase. I like T. Higgins in this matchup. On the flip side, Chicago Bears, you're starting Allen Robinson. This is the one wide receiver that you can trust. In the Bears offense, it's Allen Robinson. So that's the guy I feel comfortable with starting. You're starting Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Allen Robinson. Houston Texans, on the road against Cleveland Browns. Brandon Cooks, this is the one receiving option you can trust in this offense. You saw it last week. You're going to see it on a weekly basis. In negative game script, it's going to help Brandon Cooks. Either way, he knows how to get open and make big plays. So Brandon Cooks is a start for me in a matchup in which I think Cleveland's going to be handling the Texans no problem. We'll wait and see if the Texans are for real. I don't believe so. I know they're veterans. They're playing good football. Brandon Cooks, he's the start. On the other side, OBJ, is he going to be healthy enough to play in this matchup? I really think Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt are going to run this offense, period, this week coming up. So I don't know if I can trust any pass catchers on the Browns. I do like Jarvis Landry. I think he's a safe floor, flex-type play every single week with the reception work, with the short yardage. And you never know, he can get a touchdown here or there. Rushed one last week against the Chiefs. So I like Jarvis Landry and Brandon Cooks in this matchup. Those are my starts. New Orleans Saints on the road against the Carolina Panthers. I like Marquez Callaway this week. Last week, you saw one catch. He obviously was being defended by Jair Alexander a lot of the time. That's why Jameis went elsewhere anyway. Only finished with 148 yards, Jameis did. I think this week, it's going to be a little better, a little easier going for Marquez Callaway. Now, it's still a tough defense, period. They did get better in the secondary, so I don't know how much you can trust them, but I think Callaway will be fine as a flex option this week in a game that you could see some points scored. On the Carolina Panthers, DJ Moore is the safest guy you could play. You're going to be starting him. You drafted him probably as your wide receiver 2, maybe 3. That's where I really like him. And you're going to be starting him here against the Saints defense. That's good, but who knows if Lattimore will be healthy enough to play. Did get hurt in week 1. I do like Robbie Anderson, but not necessarily in this matchup. The Saints defense absolutely destroyed Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers last week. This is Sam Darnold we're talking about. So this is where the real test is. He played the New York Jets. I get it, played a great game, but he's playing the Saints now. So we're going to have to wait and see with that. I like DJ Moore as a safe play. And then Robbie Anderson, I'm on the fence. I probably stray away from him this week. Took a big play for him last week to find that value. And Terrence Marshall Jr. is looking like he's going to be taking over with the target share there. But we'll have to wait and see how that offense pans out. Minnesota Vikings on the road against the Arizona Cardinals. You're starting Justin Thielen and Justin Jefferson in this matchup. Arizona played great. Look at what they did in Tennessee. It was embarrassing. I still am going to say to start Thielen and Justin Jefferson here. You drafted them as your starters. You're going to be starting them. Thielen, no way he could get to 10 touchdowns, right? That's what everybody said. Well, he's on pace for 30. So start Justin Jefferson. Start Adam Thielen. Those are the receivers you're going to be wanting in this offense. On the Arizona side, you feel comfortable with DeAndre Hopkins every week. It doesn't matter. You drafted him as your wide receiver 1. Roll him out there. Feel confident. Should be another big week from him. Minnesota defense didn't look very good. Christian Kirk. Now, yes, he had a big week. 2 touchdowns. One pretty deep touchdown. And I think Jamar Chase, you saw last week, got a deep touchdown in Minnesota. I could see Chris Kirk getting a deep touchdown here. So if you want to take a flyer as a possible dart throw, and this is what Christian Kirk is on a weekly basis. This is my biggest worry. But I think he could potentially see another big play here. Rondale Moore. I just don't think that share is going to be there for him enough yet. So I think he's a stash that you're going to wait on later on in the season. Not going to be starting him this week. And then AJ Green eventually should be weaned out of this offense altogether. You know, obviously Rondell Moore should take over that role, him and Christian Kirk. But Christian Kirk is a flyer. DeAndre Hopkins, Jefferson Thielen, those are your starts in this matchup. Atlanta, on the road against Tampa Bay. You got to start Calvin Ridley. I know it stinks because Atlanta, they look bad on offense. The offensive line looks terrible. Matt Ryan, I don't know if it's going to work out this season. I really don't. I'm a big Ridley believer. I drafted him in one of my leagues over Hopkins. That's how much I believe in Calvin Ridley. But this week against Tampa Bay, front seven that's going to be getting after the quarterback period, you got to just fire Ridley up. You're going to have to live with it. Hopefully he sees enough volume. Last week he didn't see as much volume, but hopefully you can see enough volume to make it work this week. You saw Tampa Bay and Dallas. Dallas put up tons of points, tons of fantasy value for those wide receivers. So you're going to be firing Ridley no matter what. On the flip side, Tampa Bay, you're starting all the wide receivers, period. Mike Evans, you're starting Godwin, you're starting Antonio Brown still, in my opinion. You're starting all three of these guys almost on a weekly basis every single week this season. So fire them all up. Tampa Bay should easily steamroll the Atlanta Falcons. Tennessee Titans on the road against Seattle Seahawks. It's pretty safe to say you're firing up Julio Jones and A.J. Brown, albeit A.J. Brown and Julio Jones didn't have a great week. The whole Tennessee offense as a whole didn't have a great week. And Julio looked rusty, dropped a few passes, made a few mistakes. Coach called him out. So I think they could bounce back here in a matchup against the Seahawks, which their defense is much improved, better than advertised for sure. But I still think there could be a lot of fantasy points to be had in this matchup. So you're firing up A.J. Brown and Julio Jones. I got no problem with it. On the flip side, you got DK and Tyler Lockett. You're going to be starting those guys on a weekly basis no matter what. Against Tennessee defense that got roasted by Arizona. Plain and simple. You're firing up these four receivers pretty much on a weekly basis anyway. So feel free to fire them. Dallas Cowboys on the road against Los Angeles Chargers. Some receivers are going to be starting. CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper. You have to start them. This is a game in which it has a 54-point over-under. I like CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper for sure for Dallas. Obviously, Michael Gallup being out. Cedric Wilson, not really an option in this matchup. It's a tough secondary of the Chargers. Just held Washington football team under 150 passing yards. But this is Dak Prescott we're talking about. So you're starting Amari Cooper. You're starting CeeDee Lamb on a weekly basis. On the flip side, Los Angeles Chargers. Keenan Allen, must start. Plain and simple. You drafted him. It's a good spot against the Dallas secondary. You know, that actually Trayvon Diggs looked great. The rest did not look so great. So I like Keenan Allen to have a huge day here. And I think Trayvon Diggs, he might see his way onto Mike Williams a lot. I like Mike Williams, especially long term. It might be a tough day for Mike Williams, but if you want to take a chance, there's going to be a lot of points to be had in this game, or expected anyway. Mike Williams is a definite guy that could possibly fill your flex, win your flex this week. And so you like Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Lamb, and Cooper. Those are your wide receiver starts in this matchup. Kansas City Chiefs on the road against Baltimore Ravens. Tyreek Hill, the one passer catcher you can trust, that's him. I don't trust anybody else in this offense at all. You saw with McCole Hardman, Robinson, who it doesn't really matter. Byron Pringle. None of these guys have worked out yet to solidify me even taking a chance to start any of these wide receivers. So you're starting Tyreek Hill. It's an obvious one. On the flip side, Baltimore Ravens, this game is projected a lot of points. I think Marquise Brown had a pretty good day against the Las Vegas Raiders. I kind of called it. You probably should have started him over Allen Robinson. That's what I said in week 1. So obviously going into week 2, I like Hollywood Brown here, possibly for another touchdown. There could be a lot of points to be had in this game. I think Baltimore's going to keep it close, try and control the clock in that front line, be able to run the ball effectively. But I like Marquise Brown in this matchup. Along with Tyreek Hill, those are the pass catchers I can trust. Detroit Lions on the road against the Green Bay Packers. Final matchup, Monday Night Football. You're not starting a Detroit Lion wide receiver. You just aren't. Until one emerges or shows you that they can do anything, you're not starting them. On the flip side, Devontae Adams is the one wide receiver you can trust. Honestly, I could see 200 yards and 3 touchdowns from Devontae Adams this week, especially to make up for that dud that they laid last week. So Devontae Adams must start wide receiver. Obviously, he's the wide receiver 1. You're starting him every week anyway. But I think he's going to have the biggest week of all the wide receivers. So obviously, Devontae Adams, the number 1 guy this week. So that's it. That's all the wide receivers from every single matchup. If there's some wide receivers I missed on, feel free to drop a comment in the comment section. I'll get back to you. I'll give you my advice and tell you my opinion on what I think they could do this week. So once again, like the video, subscribe, share, thumb bell, comment. I'm always here to talk to you. And for the first 4 downs, it's been B. Scott, and I'm out.